You are watching Expensive Heat with Joe Parker. It's lots of money.
All right, intro time. We have the McMah0n Miracle, former Intercontinental United States and Tag Champion, current Director of Authority in TNA. You prefer Anthony or you prefer Santino?
We can do Santino today.
Santino's today. Santino Marella's in the building. How's it going over there?
Awesome, man. 2024 has been an incredible year already. You know, if it was over now, it was already a good year. So besides the one piece of bad news with Scott D'Amore and TNA, Scott getting released, that is. But otherwise, it's been awesome, man.
Good. It's a blessing to have you here. I feel like you're a future Hall of Famer. You are a big part of me growing up as a wrestling fan. You know, I feel like with people like R-Truth that has like the comedic side of wrestling, like you guys are, sure, which I'm going to ask that in a little while. But I'm sure you talk about this so many times. I just want to fast forward. 2007, you get the call up. You know, you get called up. You win the IC title against Umaga. What was that like? That booked.
Oh gosh, man. You know, I was just talking to someone yesterday. Because we were talking about Elizabethtown, Kentucky, and I said, believe it or not, that is where I was driving to when I got the phone call. And I was Boris Alexiev at the time of the phone call. Mm-hmm. And they had this idea, Vince had an idea about this Italian character potentially coming out of the audience. So the thing Vince liked was, you know, if something has not been done, then he's interested, you know. And this particular scenario had not been done where an audience member answers an open challenge and comes in the ring and wins the title. So, you know, lucky for me, when you look at my name, Anthony Carelli, it looks pretty Italian. So they were going through the roster of the developmental talent, and they saw my name and they said, you know, give him a call, see if you can speak Italian. And, you know, fake it till you make it, right?
Me growing up, you couldn't tell me that wasn't real. I believe that too. That's one of those segments.
Yeah, so there's a moment when he's originally calling me out of the audience, and I'm kind of coming, and then I don't go, and I'm like pointing to the other guy. I think it's you, and then he's like, no, I think it's you. So that moment of confusion in the audience made it so authentic in the sense that there was confusion. Like, what is this? I believe that's the moment where everybody got the hook, you know, like they believed it because there was that, like, it just looked like two guys that didn't know what was going on. Like, me, talking to me, that kind of thing. And for some reason, that particular episode was like everyone was watching that day, you know, it was just everyone was tuned in.
I definitely was. To push that, because back then the Intercontinental title was, you know, that was the cream of the crop next to the main title, right? So for them to put that title on you so early, were there bigger plans for you in the works that they or were they kind of just winging it at that point?
It was, I mean, they did it for the moment, that moment of me coming out of the audience and winning the title, and they knew I could wrestle, and I was still very green at the time, to be honest, but they knew I had a lot of potential and I was properly trained and I could be that young, fiery baby face. But the audience, they really, you know, as you know, right, they don't like to be told who to like. Yeah. And all of a sudden, they were kind of shoving me down their throat. And people are like, man, this guy just came out of the audience. You're going to tell me he can beat Shelton Benjamin. You're telling me he can beat Chris Masters. Like, so the people kind of rejected the original incarnation of Santino. And then when I turned heel, like a few months in, that's really when it kicked off and people started enjoying the comedy.
It's funny you say that because heels with the foreign background always do better for some reason.
Yeah.
Is it like they play off the anti-Americanism and it kind of just sells itself here? I guess that's what.
I was never the anti-American guy. I was just like
not you
chauvinist. Right, the Russian, the Iranian, you know, all that stuff.
Canadian side, that they always have a way of making it look a certain way. Is it safe to say Vince took a liking to you early? Is it because I was doing my research and it said that you are after Cornette, Heyman was your guy, right?
Yeah.
So is it because
at OVW? At OVW when Cornette left, Heyman came in and he was kind of watching one of my practices from the rafters one day, and then he waited and he caught me in the parking lot and he said, "Yeah, I'd like to debut you on OVW TV." So the year before I went to OVW, I was in Japan doing like work shoot, that kind of MMA style wrestling, and so I ended up getting booted out of Japan because I overstayed one of my tourist visas by like a few days.
Mm.
But now I went to OVW and I had a different skill set. Everyone was doing, headlock, tackle, drop down, whatever. And I was doing like MMA stuff. So I just stood out from the
Yeah.
get-go. I stood out. And Paul Heyman had this idea of Boris Alexia. And so I was one of the only unsigned guys on OVW TV. Because in the advanced class at OVW, let's say there was 30 guys, maybe 26 were signed, like developmental, and maybe 4 were just guys in the advanced class. And that's where I got myself to. And so because the advanced class, they get to, some producers come and check in on the talent. They're involved in OVW TV. So I knew that would be my way to get seen and get noticed. And that's what happened. I was like, because the office watches OVW TV, and they talk about what they liked and who they didn't like and who's standing out and who looks good. And so the character Boris is the one that got me signed. And then I was, I went home, got my visa, came back, and I was there for like probably 4 months. And then the stars aligned and there happened to be a Raw in Italy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, perfect.
Like if there was no Raw in Italy, God, I can't even imagine the route I would have taken to get there.
For sure. Can we take the time out to just appreciate Paul Heyman? I feel like he's the best manager of all time for me in terms of what I've seen.
So good.
Yeah. What's your relationship with Paul?
I love Paul. I have fond memories of sitting on European tours, sitting in catering late at night, listening to him tell stories, because he has an excellent a memory of the history, because Paul Heyman worked for Vince's dad when he was like a teenager, and he was like a photographer. He had newsletters that were actually inserted in I guess it was WWF back then. They were inserted in the programs, and he just really impressed Vince's dad, and so he's been around like since he was like, I think it was like 14 or something. And to top it off, he's just naturally good at it, and I could listen to him tell stories all day.
Something about Paulie, man, like you can connect with him no matter what. It's just the believability. He's just so good at what he does. I didn't realize that he was, even the WCW days, I was watching old clips and he was Paulie Dangerously. I didn't realize he was in WCW back then as well.
Oh man, he's just always been there somehow.
Yeah, it keeps showing up now. It's like a history lesson every time I Google something or YouTube something that he was there. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, Vince, what are your thoughts on Vince in this situation now?
Well, the situation now is, it's I just know nothing about it, right? It's kind of hard to comment on it. He was always super professional to me, very kind. If I asked for his attention, if I stuck around after the show to talk to him, he was always there for me. Put things down, turn around, made eye contact. He was always a gentleman to me. With everything that's happening, I don't know if I don't really pay attention. I got small kids, so I watch like Treehouse and Disney Plus and everything. But it seems like everything was like agreed upon. Like it wasn't like he forced himself. I mean, it's freaky and nasty and dirty and stuff like that, but it seemed consensual. That's like there's no charges, right? Have there been charges laid?
I don't think so. I don't think there's any charges. I mean, they did say trafficking, which is wild to me. So like I don't know how
that's a buzzword. I think that's a buzzword, he's obviously not a pimp.
Even Brock Lesnar, he's not even involved in the suit, but they're like, it's like a witch hunt for him now. They're erasing him from everything. Like what do you think about that? Yeah, like he was involved in the text, and then it's like they took him out of, I believe, the intro videos of Raw, SmackDown, things
Yeah,
like that. They removed just from there, like this. So they're trying to slowly erase him. It looks like. What was
yeah.
your
Well,
relationship with
Brock and I weren't always there at the same time. You know, he was gone for a while, and that's mostly when I was there. But
Yeah,
again, he was always cool with me. I love grappling, right? Wrestling, judo, and jiu-jitsu. He's a high-level wrestler. He's a I don't live on a farm per se, but we got chickens, and he's a
yeah,
farmer, and he's a country boy, and we have a lot of similarities and interests and stuff. But I tell you what, he is one guy. So the WWE is a circus, right? You have the great Ali walking around, and Mark Henry, and the Big Show, and it's just some really freak specimens. But Brock Lesnar was a
yeah.
guy I'd look over at, if we were there on the same day and be like, my God, look at this guy. Like just his hands and his neck. And like, I always have this like visual, like there's my army is on one side of the field and like their army is on the other side of the field. And someone gives me the axe and pushes me out. And then someone gives him an axe and pushes him out like it's going to be us. I'm like, oh no, tell my wife and family, I love them because he's just such a
For sure.
Viking. He's a Viking, man.
That was the word I was just gonna use as soon as you finish, because that's what I see when I see him. He's got
Yeah.
that physique. He's got that. Somebody that size to be that fast and that strong is it's not like you said, freaking nature. Like it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like
So
it's a spectacle for
proportionately,
real.
like someone who's in good shape, if you could do, you know, 15 pull-ups, and let's say you're like 190 pounds, 15 pull-ups, that's a great number. But Brock can do like
Mm.
30 pull-ups and he's like 300 pounds. It's terrifying,
That's 29 more than me. What is my max, right? So I want to ask you about the Santino Marella gimmick, right? Because I feel like in wrestling, especially in WWE, punishment gimmicks was the thing, right? So when a guy would fuck up, they'd end up like Vito or Saturn or something. Was Santina a punishment gimmick, or that was your idea?
No, it was a comedy thing. Vince really liked. He found a lot of comedy in the storyline between me and Beth Phoenix, and and it's funny because it comes out now. Vince was all about this alpha male thing, being the dominant alpha male, and in this
Mhm.
relationship, it was funny because Beth Phoenix was the dominant alpha female, and Santino was constantly trying to prove that he's
Yeah,
not the beta. And so the idea was he was going to sneak in the women's battle royal and show that, men are superior athletes. And that was it. It was supposed to be a one-off event, but it was so funny that Santino stuck around for like 3 months.
yeah. You're one of the few guys that can give Vince the break. That's on YouTube. That gets me every time. Like something about making guys break character. Like you made him laugh with that character and his
Well,
comedy.
but
I
but
love
what
it.
you're saying is you touched on it is yeah. So a lot of people don't come back from that extreme
Mhm.
gimmick, like putting on a dress or dressing like a woman. It's often like the last squeeze of juice out of someone's career.
Yeah.
But I was able to come back for years and years and years after.
You think because you were comedy based, it helped out? Like that just kind of was just an extra, you know,
Yeah,
push towards you being a funny guy. Like, because I think they overlook your actual talent because you are able to do the comedic role, and even though if it might seem over the top, it's not ridiculous. Like it's still enjoyable. It's not, you know what I mean? Like you get to enjoy the character.
yeah. I tell people this analogy. When you go for sushi, you get
Mm.
the ginger comes with every dish, right? But you didn't go for the ginger, but it comes with every meal.
Yeah,
And that's the comedy. I think sometimes you go to see the champion, or the tag team champions, but the comedic element is a part of every show. And there
yeah.
was a time when it was like nobody was even contesting it. I was just a comedy guy for years and years and years. So I was a part of every live event, both TVs. It was great.
That's awesome. Um, so not only is the IC strap in your debut like a big part of your resume, but the fastest elimination in the Rumble. How did that get booked? Was that your idea? Was that just something they said would make it funny? Like, how did that come about?
Well, we had the big sit down meeting, and I remember it was Dean Malenko, and he's like, we go over the order of entry, and then they kind of go over the order of elimination. And he's like, yeah, you're coming to the ring, and kind of wanted to break it to me like it's going to be quick, And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
cool. And I'm like, can I ask you, can we try and break the record? And he's like, let me get back to you. I gotta clear that one. And then he went, and later in the day I saw him, and he goes, oh, by the way, you're good to go. You can try and break the record. So just had to talk it over. We didn't even rehearse it or anything. Just talked it over. Kane, being the man, he was there at the right time. And technically it was pretty smooth, and we got it done.
I
They tried
love
to
it.
break it a few times, but it's tight, man. That's a
1 second
small gap.
is hard. Yeah, for sure. To go back to Beth Phoenix, well, the Glamorella run, what was it like working with Beth? She seems like
Oh,
such a genuinely nice person.
she is. Beth is I always say Beth is what you want. Whatever you need somebody for, if you had Beth in that role, you're doing good. If you're looking for an employee, a boss, a partner, anything, Beth is just an incredible human being. She's so talented and like a musician and an artist, and she's like has multiple degrees, and she's strong and beautiful, and she's funny. Like she's everything. She's like a
Oh,
superhuman person, and she's just incredible. So I was really happy when her and Adam got together because there's two really good people that deserve each other.
I was watching the WWE 24 where they documented Edge's whole return and
Oh
finding
yeah,
out his neck was watching that. It was you could really see how supportive she is as a wife or mother. Like that was awesome to
yeah.
see for
She's
sure.
she's and we spent years together, and so the thing with the wrestling business is, so I was there for 10 years, and those are arguably the most fun years you'll ever have in your life. And
Mm,
when you share them with somebody on a day-to-day basis, we were working together, and sometimes we rode together, but we didn't share hotel rooms, but we had separate rooms. But
mm.
and you look back at some of the most fond memories of your life, and that person was there. So you always have a special place in your heart for them because they're a part of some of the greatest times in your life.
I think we're pretty fortunate too now. Like with Instagram and things like that, you get to actually see a lot of backstage things that you didn't see back in the day. So now you get to see like the ladies that you see feud on TV. They dance together. They have a good time.
Yeah.
You get to see guys like Cody out of the character. Like it's actually interesting what really happens back there. That what we can see. I can only imagine what we don't get to see and you guys get to enjoy off camera.
Yeah. It's interesting because the old school thought was like you never break character. You have to make them believe, even though they know it's a work and we've taken down the curtain or whatever. Um, you still have to respect the storyline. But people are cool with, like for example, they could watch a scary movie and they love the actor and they know the actor has been in 17 other movies, but when they still watch that movie, they still get into it, they still get scared, they still enjoy the performance. And so now, for example, I'm speaking with my normal voice,
Mhm.
and if I do something tomorrow in character, it's not ruined because they've heard my normal voice. They can accept and allow both. And
Yeah.
bad guys can be good and hug little kids with cancer, and can still be a bad guy the next day. And everyone's cool with allowing that. They can flick the switch on and off in terms of
Yeah.
the character, and also the fans can flick the belief on and off as well.
So last question on that. How do you think they value these titles today, such as like mid-card titles, such as Intercontinental United States title, compared to when you were there in your heyday? Well, what do you think I feel like they don't have the same level of importance or impact that they did back then.
Well, it just takes the right person. Those titles are kind of referred to as the working titles. Those guys
Yeah.
wrestle a lot, defend them a lot. They're not the top guys, but they're very, very respected. Like Gunter, right? He's still the IC champ, right? and he's had
Sure.
that for a long time, and he's really respected in the industry. Um, they're essential titles. What's funny, in 1998, when I declared I'm going to be a professional wrestler, the IC title was the one I just was gravitating towards. I actually called it in '98. I go, one day I'm going to be Intercontinental Champion, and people that were there when I said that, to this day they're like, he called it, he called it. But
Sure.
it was always the most appealing to me.
Yeah, awesome. So TNA, they went
Yeah.
back. They went back to the game. You're director of authority. How did that happen?
So Scott D'Amore is a friend of mine, and for the last 10 years, I opened Battle Arts in 2013, and the first several years was just making it work, man. We were focusing on expanding the program and getting members, and I was coaching judo, coaching pro wrestling, and we had amateur wrestling and boxing and fitness classes, and it's a huge facility. So I was kind of, I don't want to say sucked in, but um, it took up all my time really, and
Mhm.
I was involved in the business, but
Yeah.
I was coaching my students, putting on student shows. I did a TV show on Sportsnet called Aftermath, where we talk about WWE products and stuff. So I never really left the business, but I wasn't on TV performing.
Yeah.
And Scott just said, "Why don't you come work for us, man?" And I'm like, you know what? Because 2020 changed everything, and obviously the gyms were shut down, and we moved up north. So I actually live an hour and a half away from Battle Arts, and I brought in there's partners that kind of run it. So and I'm not coaching. I was coaching up until Labor Day weekend of last year. So I coached for
Yes.
10 years, and I'm not coaching really anymore. We have some excellent senior students that are teaching the program, beginners and advanced and intermediate, and they're doing a great job. And so all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? The timing is right. I'm down. Let's do it. So I started in January 2023. So it's been 1 year. And man, I credit that company for making me fall in love with this business all over again. I forgot,
Mm.
because I was home for so long that, man, I belong on the road, hotels, rental cars, Denny's, local gyms. Like
Yeah.
that's where I lived for so long. And it's so good. Like for me to go to the airport, it's this feeling of I'm going to work, but I'm going home, and you know, the locker room atmosphere. It's great to be around the younger kids and brilliant minds. And now I produce as well. So I'm
Yeah.
transitioning in my career, and I tell you, I've had so much fun the last year at TNA, and I know people talk about it's known for being an incredible place to work, and the environment is awesome. It's positive. It's a great band of brothers and sisters we have there, and yeah, I just signed for another year, and I love it, and
Nice.
I love what we're doing. I believe it. I believe we can break into that next level, and have some 7,000 person sellouts, and not just 2,000 or 1,000. I think we can get to the next level, man.
With a guy like Nick Nemeth or Dolph Ziggler, for the ones that don't know, you work plenty of times with him. What's it like having a guy over there? Is it nostalgic being able to have somebody in the company that you spent so many time working with?
Yeah, so I love Nick. He's a wicked athlete, and he's just a funny guy, obviously. But I haven't seen him for a while because I live in Canada, and he's been there. So I saw him, and I'm
Yeah.
like, dude. I said, like so my neck surgery was 2014. So I kind of haven't really been on the road for 10 years. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you've been there? He goes, the whole time. And and I'm like, how the hell have you been there? I was there for 10 years. You've been there for 20 years? It's mind blowing. You know what I mean? And he's here, man. And I told him, I said, brother, I am so happy that you're here. You're gonna love it. And this is what I told him. I said, "You're such a good wrestler that you had an awesome 20-year career for a company that was never even really a perfect fit. You know,
Yeah.
when you look at his style and his size and his attitude, it was never a perfect fit." And I said, "This place here is all you. You're gonna love it. These kids can keep up with you. They wrestle the way you've always wanted to wrestle. You have freedom. It's just a lighter schedule. It's gonna make you fall in love with wrestling again." So I'm super happy that he's here because I mean he's been world heavyweight champion, and yeah, but if you look at the length of his career and the titles he's had, there's been peaks and valleys where there was like a year or two sometimes between titles. Um,
Yeah. Sure.
so anyway, the sky's the limit here. And I said, he's a legacy guy. He understands that. I go, if you can put your name and associate your name to be the guy that helped make TNA go to the next level, you're already a legend, but you'll be a bigger legend. You know what I mean? So I think that appeals to him.
Awesome. In terms of last question, before I have a couple random questions before we get out of here, but for Scott D'Amore,
Oh man.
how much will he be, missed in the locker room and
Well,
to the
part of
company?
it is we're hoping it's not case closed, right? We're hoping that there's some communication and dialogue and we can find something. And here's the thing. When you are a president of a professional wrestling company, it's not like being a president of a regular company. They almost need a different word because
Yeah.
to monetize the product, to grow the viewership, with changing technologies and all that stuff, that's one part of it. But you have to know who has potential, who has the ability to get over with an audience, who's going to be good in a locker room environment, who's going to be good for the locker room period, and understand storytelling, who's going to have the title. Like there's the wrestling side of that as well. And I don't know who's going to do that. The new guy, Anthony Chacon, is brilliant. He's a television guy. He gets it. He gets the monetization aspect, and he's done some great things in the industry. His resume is stacked as a businessman, and he understands. He worked for a station called The Score, and The Score had SmackDown and Raw, and he was instrumental in bringing them aboard. So he's been around wrestling, but he hasn't produced wrestling television shows. So with the stuff he's going to be given, I'm positive he's going to do a great job. But there's some boxes that are still unchecked in terms of like who's going to do that. So I don't know if they're going to hire from within, kind of promote from within, or hire someone from the outside. So there's still some questions that need to be answered, but it's still going to work. It's just there's a lot of guys that, for me, I wouldn't. If Scott didn't ask me, I wouldn't be there. And there's a lot of guys like that had. Some guys had offers for a lot more money from bigger companies, and they're like, "Nah, I just want to stay there. I love it there." And there's, depending on your financial situation, if you can afford to pick the company that you love working for and turn down more money, more power to you, right? Some guys can't do that. I got a wife, 3 kids. They're offering me triple the money. I gotta go, right? But there's a lot of guys that are there because of the relationship with Scott. So with him not there, it's like, he was like the nucleus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Something's
now,
missing.
yeah. So we'll see. The show coming up in New Orleans, I'm actually not going to be there, but that'll be the first show without him. So, we'll see how it goes in terms of morale and leadership, and I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, it won't be the same, but it'll also be okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I have 2 random questions for you before we get out of
Yeah.
here. The Cobra versus the Samoan Spike, and who wins?
Oh God. I can't take anything away from Umaga, man. I've taken the Samoan Spike, so I'll give it to Umaga.
Toughest guy in the locker room in WWE and TNA.
Oh man, man, there were so many tough guys when I was there. Because like Shelton and Charlie Haas, like just studs.
Yeah.
Strongest guy is Mark Henry,
Mhm.
like strongest guy ever, like not just in the locker room, like in the world, right? Like legit in the world. And then you got guys like Big Show. Oh man, it's so hard. John Cena's crazy strong. Cesaro, very strong. Man, that's a tough call. Toughest? You mean like street fight tough?
You know how everybody throws Haku whenever you mention
Oh yeah,
tough, right?
yeah. I
So
guess
from
it'd
your
have to
time,
be Brock or
who's the guy?
Bobby.
Bobby, for sure. Right?